Rain fell like silver threads over the alien city of Verith Prime. The sky was full of tall glass towers that glowed in soft purple light. Flying cars moved silently between them, leaving trails of blue mist behind. But on the lower streets, near the old part of the city, everything was quiet and dark. A lonely human walked there. His name was Eli Carter. His clothes were torn, his boots full of dust. He carried a small metal bag, the only thing left from his old life. His face was tired, his eyes sharp like someone who had seen too many wars. He had no money, no friends, and nowhere to go. It had been 3 years since the human-Dravani war ended. The humans had lost. Most were gone, dead, or taken as workers to far planets. Eli was one of the last free ones. He had escaped the camps, crossing hundreds of miles looking for a place to hide. That night he stopped in front of an old building. The sign above the door read, "Rooms for rent, quiet tenants only." Eli took a deep breath and knocked. Inside, Sarah, the landlady, sat in her dimly lit room. Her long violet fingers played with an old glass cup of blue tea. She had lived alone for many years. Once she had been a proud Dravani pilot fighting in the war, but her mate had died in battle and she had left the military broken inside. When the knock came, Sarah frowned. Few people came here anymore. She stood, her long tail brushing the floor as she walked to the door. Through the thin glass she saw a human, dirty, shivering, but standing straight. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice cold. "Eli Carter," he said softly. "I'm looking for a room." Her golden eyes narrowed. "You're human. You people are not welcome here." "I know," Eli replied. "I have nowhere else to go. I can work. I just need a place to sleep." Sarah almost laughed, but something in his voice made her stop. It wasn't begging, it was calm, tired honesty. She studied his face. Most humans she had seen were loud or fearful. This one looked like he'd already accepted death, yet refused to bow to it. "You have no money?" she asked. "None," Eli said, "but I can fix things. Machines, circuits, lights, anything." Sarah hesitated. Logic told her to shut the door, but something deep inside her chest, something she thought was long dead, whispered otherwise. "Fine," she said at last. "One night. You leave by morning." Eli nodded once. "Thank you." The room she gave him was small, dusty, and full of broken furniture, but to Eli it was paradise. He dropped his bag, sighed, and sat on the old bed. For the first time in months he was safe, or at least safer than before. Sarah returned to her chair, pretending not to care. But her mind was restless. Why had she allowed a human inside? What if the council found out? Humans were forbidden to live in Dravani buildings without license. She tried to sleep but couldn't. The sound of distant thunder mixed with the city hum. Hours passed. Then she heard something strange, a soft click followed by a low hum. It came from the human's room. Sarah stood up quietly and walked down the hall. The door to Eli's room was half open. She peered inside. The lights were off, but there was a faint blue glow. Eli was sitting on the floor, surrounded by metal parts from his bag. He was fixing something, a small machine round like a sphere with blinking lights and wires. Sarah stepped closer. "What are you doing?" Eli jumped, then quickly covered the machine with his jacket. "Just fixing an old thing. It helps me sleep." Sarah frowned. "That's not Dravani tech." "What is it?" "Something from Earth," he said simply. "A memory. That's all." Their eyes met for a second. For the first time, Sarah saw not a human enemy, but a lonely soul like herself. She wanted to ask more, but pride stopped her. "Keep it quiet," she said coldly and walked away. Later that night, Sarah couldn't sleep again. Her mind replayed the moment, that strange light, the sadness in Eli's eyes, the way he said Earth like it was already gone. She turned off the room lights and sat by the window, staring at the city. Then a flash of blue reflected on the glass. Sarah turned sharply. The glow came again from Eli's room. Stronger now. It pulsed through the cracks under his door. She stood and walked fast, tail lashing behind her. "Eli," she called. "What are you doing?" No answer. She pushed open the door. The bed was empty. The walls shimmered with blue light. The small sphere floated in the air, spinning faster and faster. A strange symbol appeared on it, a pattern she didn't understand. "Eli," she whispered. But he was gone. Only the machine remained, humming softly, as if whispering a secret to the stars. Outside, Far above the city, the clouds shifted. A faint light blinked in orbit, once, twice, then vanished into space, and somewhere far away in the dark, something answered. Morning came slowly over Verith Prime. The purple sun rose behind the tall towers, and the city started to buzz with life again. Flying pods passed the windows and the smell of ion smoke filled the air. But inside the old building, the air was heavy and still. Sarah stood outside the human's room, staring at the closed door. Last night she had seen the blue light, the floating machine, and then Eli was gone. She had searched the hallway, even the roof, but there was no sign of him. Her mind told her it must have been a dream, but her heart whispered otherwise. Finally, she pushed the door open. The room was a mess. Tools, wires, metal plates all spread on the floor. The small round sphere from last night lay silent now, half covered by Eli's jacket. Sarah stepped closer, her tail twitching nervously. The machine looked harmless, yet the air around it felt strange, like the air before lightning. When she touched it, the sphere suddenly blinked. A small blue light came alive in its center, and a human voice echoed softly. "Signal sent." Awaiting response, Sarah jumped back, eyes wide. It was no dream. The human had used forbidden tech, something strong enough to send a message into space. At that moment, footsteps sounded behind her. "Careful," said a calm voice. She turned. Eli stood there, covered in dust, a few small burns on his jacket. His eyes looked tired but calm. "You disappeared," she said sharply. "Where were you?" "I was in the basement," Eli said quietly. "I needed a power line. The upper outlets couldn't handle the charge." Sarah's golden eyes flashed. "That device, what is it?" Eli sighed, picked up the sphere, and sat down on the floor. "It's a beacon," he said. "A human distress signal. It can reach beyond this system. I've been trying to fix it for months." Sarah's pulse quickened. "Do you understand what that means?" "The council bans all foreign transmissions. If they find out, they'll kill me," Eli finished. "And maybe you too." "Yes, I know. Then why risk it?" she asked. He looked up at her, his voice low but firm. "Because I'm not the last one. Somewhere out there, some of my people might still be alive. And if they are, they need to know someone survived too." Sarah looked at him for a long moment. His face was calm, but his hands trembled slightly. She realized this man had carried this hope for years, alone, hiding like a ghost. For the first time in many years, Sarah felt something she had forgotten: respect. Later that day, Sarah went about her chores, but her thoughts kept returning to the human. She remembered how the Dravani soldiers had spoken of humans during the war: weak, emotional, chaotic. Yet this one had courage most soldiers lacked. That night, curiosity overcame fear. She went down to the basement. The place was dark and full of old machines. In the corner, Eli sat cross-legged beside a pile of glowing cables. The small beacon was open, its inner circuits pulsing with light. He didn't look up when Sarah entered. "Couldn't sleep again?" he asked softly. "I should report you," she said. "But I won't, not yet." "Why?" he asked. "I want to know why this beacon matters so much." Eli smiled faintly. "Because it's the only thing that reminds me I'm still human. Every night I ask myself, was the war worth it? Were we monsters like they said? But if even one human answers this signal, maybe I'll know we didn't vanish for nothing." Sarah sat quietly beside him. The beacon hummed like a heartbeat. Her mind told her to walk away, but her chest ached with a strange feeling. Maybe loneliness understood loneliness, no matter the species. "Humans are strange," she murmured. "You fight even when you've already lost." Eli looked at her. "That's what makes us human." For a moment, silence filled the basement. Only the hum of the beacon spoke. Then suddenly the machine gave a sharp pulse. Beep, beep, beep. The light turned green. Eli froze. "That's impossible." "What happened?" Sarah asked. "It's connected," he whispered. "The signal found a relay." Someone answered. Sarah stood. "Who?" Eli pressed the side of the sphere. A voice broken by static came through. "This is the Terran vessel Hope's End. Receiving transmission. Identify yourself." Eli's eyes filled with tears. "They're alive." Sarah's skin tingled. "You mean humans still exist?" "Yes," Eli said. "And now they know I'm here." For a few seconds, both stood still, staring at the small machine. The soft blue light filled the basement like a heartbeat from the past. Then Sarah's communicator buzzed loudly, breaking the silence. She looked at it, and her blood ran cold. A message from the Dravani Council Patrol blinked on the screen. Unauthorized transmission detected near your district. Prepare for inspection. Her tail froze in mid-motion. She looked at Eli. They're coming. Eli closed the beacon quickly and began to hide it in a metal pipe. How long do we have? He asked. Not long, she said. Maybe an hour. Eli nodded, his voice steady. Then we make it disappear. Sarah didn't ask how. She only watched as the human worked. Fast, precise, silent. He hid the beacon inside an old generator and rerouted the cables to make the signal look like a power surge. When he was done, he stood and wiped the sweat from his brow. If they find this, we're both dead, Sarah whispered. Then we make sure they don't, Eli said. His tone was calm, but his eyes glowed with quiet fire. Outside, the sky darkened again. Thunder rumbled across the alien city. The patrol ships were already on their way. Sarah looked once more at the human who had brought danger into her empty life, and something strange stirred in her heart. Maybe this wasn't just about survival anymore. Maybe fate had brought him here for a reason. The night was heavy with silence after the message from the Dravani Council. Sarah didn't sleep. She sat by her window watching the silver clouds move over Verith Prime. Down below, the city lights blinked like dying stars. Her hands trembled slightly as she held a cup of blue tea. In the basement, she knew Eli was still working. The human never stopped. Even when the Council's patrol ships could arrive at any time, he kept repairing, adjusting, checking the beacon's hidden systems. Sarah told herself she should throw him out, save herself. Yet each time she thought about it, she couldn't move. Something about this human had changed the air inside her home. The walls didn't feel as cold anymore. Hours later, when the first glow of dawn touched the horizon, Sarah went down to the basement. Eli sat there with dark circles under his eyes, staring at the now silent beacon. The machine looked dead, but its center glowed faintly, like a sleeping heartbeat. You didn't rest, Sarah said quietly. Couldn't, he replied. They might come today. They will come, she said. And when they do, they'll search everything. You shouldn't be here. Eli smiled faintly, the kind of smile that came after long pain. You could hand me over. Save yourself. That's what anyone else would do. Sarah's golden eyes met his. I was a soldier once. I know what betrayal looks like. It doesn't suit me. Eli looked surprised. You were in the war? Yes, she said softly. I flew ships for the Dravani fleet. I watched your people burn cities. I also watched my mate die when your ships fought back. Eli lowered his head. I'm sorry. Don't be, she said. War takes everything from everyone. There was silence. Only the hum of the city echoed through the pipes. Then from above came the deep rumble of engines. Sarah's eyes widened. They're here. Through the cracked basement window, a shadow passed, sleek, silver, and silent. A council patrol ship. Red lights blinked across its hull as it hovered outside the building. Sarah rushed upstairs, her long coat sweeping the floor. Eli followed, keeping low. Outside the main door, 3 tall Dravani soldiers in black armor were already waiting. Their eyes glowed faint yellow, their plasma rifles humming softly. Building inspection, said the lead soldier, his voice cold. There was an unauthorized signal in this area last night. Sarah straightened her shoulders. This is a private residence. No signals here. The soldier looked past her into the dark hallway. All buildings must be checked. Sarah forced her tone calm. Fine, but my tenant is asleep. Don't wake him, the soldier tilted his head. A tenant? You never registered one? Sarah froze, then smiled faintly. A small rule break. The human pays in work, repairs, nothing more. The soldier sneered. A human? In a Dravani home? You must be desperate. Sarah's tail flicked sharply. Check the basement if you must. But be quick. As the soldiers spread out, Sarah's mind raced. Eli hid behind a supply crate near the basement door, holding his breath. The soldiers moved closer, scanning with their sensors. One of them stopped near the hidden generator, the place where the beacon was concealed. His scanner beeped softly. Sarah's heart jumped. Energy spike here, the soldier said. What is this? Old power lines, Sarah replied smoothly. Half of them are dead. This building is ancient. The soldier frowned, bending closer. His gloved hand reached toward the generator panel. Before he could touch it, there was a loud crash upstairs. A light fixture fell from the ceiling with a sharp clang. The soldiers turned instantly. What was that? Sarah hid a small smile. Rats, she said. Big ones. Eli upstairs was silently holding a broken pipe. He had thrown it with perfect timing. After a moment, the soldiers stepped back. "Nothing unusual," said the leader. "But if the council learns you shelter humans, Sarah of Vareth, you'll lose this building." "I understand," she said coolly. They left without another word, their ship rising into the clouds. When the hum of the engines faded, Sarah closed the door and locked it. She leaned against it, breathing hard. Eli came down the stairs quietly. "That was close," he said. "Too close," Sarah replied. "You saved the beacon." "You saved me," Eli said softly. "That makes us even." Sarah looked at him for a long moment. For the first time, she saw something more than just a human survivor. She saw someone who refused to give up even when the universe had turned against him. "Why do you trust me?" she asked. "I could still betray you." "Because you didn't," Eli said simply. "And because you look lonelier than I am." The words hit Sarah like a blade of truth. She turned away quickly, pretending not to hear. That evening, she watched Eli from the hallway as he repaired old lights in the common room. He hummed softly to himself, an old earth tune, simple but beautiful. The warm light filled the space for the first time in years. The walls no longer felt like a tomb. Sarah sat by the window, her golden eyes soft. She thought of her mate, gone long ago, and realized she hadn't felt this alive since before the war. She whispered to herself, "What are you doing to me, human?" Later that night, Sarah walked to the basement again. The beacon sat silent, but something new glowed faintly on its surface. A small message burned into the metal. "They are coming." Sarah's blood ran cold. She called Eli and he rushed down. He stared at the message. "That's not from the council," he said. "That's from space." Sarah looked at him. "From who?" Eli swallowed hard. "The ones who answered my signal." They stared at each other in the dim blue light. Outside, far above Vareth Prime, a distant point of light flickered. Too steady to be a star. Too small to be a ship. Whatever it was coming closer. The city of Vareth Prime looked calm from above. But beneath the shining towers, fear was spreading. The Dravani Council had announced a full investigation. Someone in the lower districts had sent a forbidden signal into deep space. To most citizens, it was just another crime report. But for Sarah, it was a nightmare growing closer every hour. She stood on the balcony of her old building, her golden eyes scanning the distant patrol ships. They moved like metal hawks across the sky, searching, tracking. She could feel the hum of their scanners passing through the air. Downstairs, Eli worked silently in the basement, checking the hidden beacon. Its glow was now dull, but a new message blinked on its tiny screen. "Transmission received. Coordinates locked. We are coming." Eli stared at the words for a long time. A mix of hope and fear filled his chest. If those were humans, then he was not alone. But if the Dravani found out, both he and Sarah would die. That evening, Sarah came down to him, her steps quiet, her face unreadable. "They're tightening the search," she said softly. "The patrols will come block by block. They will scan every structure," Eli nodded. "Then we need to move the beacon." "Move it where?" "Somewhere they won't think to look," Eli said. "Maybe in the old sewer tunnels under the city," Sarah frowned. "Those tunnels are dangerous. Toxic gas, broken bots, and thieves. Even I wouldn't go down there." Eli gave a small smile. "Then it's perfect. They won't either." For a long moment she said nothing. Then she sighed and nodded. "I'll help you." Night fell. The streets outside were almost empty except for the faint buzz of patrol drones. Sarah wore a dark cloak, her long tail hidden beneath it. Eli carried the small beacon wrapped in cloth. They slipped through an alley behind the building, entering an old maintenance hatch that led underground. The air below was damp and cold, smelling of rust and decay. Their footsteps echoed as they walked deeper into the tunnels. Old lights flickered weakly, showing graffiti and collapsed pipes. "This city forgot this place," Sarah said quietly. "It used to be a transport line before the war." Eli looked around. "Forgotten places are good for people like us." They stopped near an old energy chamber. It was big enough to hide a ship. The walls were covered in glowing fungus and water dripped from above. Eli began setting the beacon into an old vent pipe. Sarah watched him, her mind racing. "Eli," she said after a moment, "why risk your life for this? Why not just hide and survive quietly?" He didn't look up. "Because surviving isn't living. I can't spend my life running from shadows. If there's even one ship out there, One human voice that hears this signal. It means humanity isn't gone. Sarah looked at him and her chest tightened. She remembered the day she lost her mate, the silence that followed, and how empty her life had become. Maybe this human was chasing the same thing she had lost, hope. Before she could speak, a metallic sound echoed through the tunnel. Clank. Sarah froze. Eli's hand went to his belt where a small human blaster hung. Clank, clank. Something moved in the shadows. A faint red light flickered. An eye. Drones, Sarah whispered. Council patrol scanners. They've tracked us. Eli grabbed the beacon. Run! They sprinted through the tunnels as beams of red light sliced the air behind them. Metal drones, spider-like and fast, crawled along the walls. Plasma bolts fired past, burning holes in the stone. Sarah spun around, firing her old plasma pistol. A drone exploded in sparks. Keep moving, she shouted. Eli leaped over a broken pipe, clutching the beacon. Almost there. They reached a junction where the tunnel split into two paths. Sarah pointed left. This way! But before they could move, a larger drone dropped from above. A Hunter-class unit armed with twin cannons. Its metallic voice echoed through the tunnel. Unauthorized transmission source detected. Surrender or be eliminated. Sarah aimed and fired, but the shot bounced off its armor. The Hunter advanced, charging its cannons. Eli set the beacon down and looked at the wall beside him. A panel of old wiring. He ripped it open and quickly began connecting wires. Sparks flew. What are you doing? Sarah shouted. Overloading the tunnel grid. Eli yelled back. When I say now, get down. The Hunter's cannons powered up, glowing bright red. Sarah fired again to distract it. Eli slammed two wires together. Now! Sarah dove to the ground as a blinding flash lit the tunnel. The power surge tore through the pipes and the Hunter exploded in a shower of blue fire. For a few seconds, everything was silent except the crackle of burning circuits. Eli coughed, covered in dust. Sarah helped him up. You're insane, she said. He smiled weakly. You're welcome. They both laughed, just for a moment, forgetting the danger around them. They finally reached a deep chamber filled with old machinery. It looked safe enough. Eli placed the beacon on a platform and reactivated it. The small sphere glowed again, soft and steady. Sarah watched the blue light reflect on Eli's face. What now? She asked. Now, he said. We wait. She nodded slowly. For humans to come back. And for hope to find us again, he replied. Far above, in the cold orbit of Verith Prime, a Dravani patrol ship received a signal from one of its destroyed drones. A distorted image showed two figures running through the tunnels, a human and a Dravani female. The officer watching the feed narrowed his eyes. So that's where they're hiding. He opened a channel to the council. We found the source of the signal. Prepare the strike team. Back underground, the beacon pulsed softly, unaware of the danger closing in. Sarah and Eli sat side by side, both silent, both lost in their thoughts. Sarah looked at him and whispered, You know they'll never stop hunting you. Eli looked back, calm and steady. Then they'll have to learn what humans do when they're cornered. She smiled faintly. And what's that? He looked toward the beacon's glow. We fight back. The underground chamber was silent except for the faint hum of the beacon. Its blue light pulsed slowly, steady as a heartbeat. Eli sat cross-legged beside it, his hands trembling slightly. Across from him, Sarah leaned against the cold wall, her eyes half closed but alert. They had been hiding for 2 days. The air was damp, their food gone, and the sound of patrol drones echoed faintly above them. But neither could leave. If they did, they'd lead the Dravani Council straight to the beacon. The message on the sphere still blinked. Coordinates locked. Response in progress. Eli stared at those words. They were hope and fear wrapped together. Do you really believe they'll come? Sarah asked quietly. Eli looked up, his face pale in the glow. If the Terran fleet still exists, yes. But they'll need time to reach us. Time, Sarah said bitterly. That's the one thing we don't have. She turned her gaze upward toward the ceiling of rusted pipes. Somewhere beyond, the council's scanners were sweeping the city, getting closer every hour. I've lived my whole life obeying their rules, she murmured. Now I'm running from them because of one human. Eli gave a tired smile. Then we have something in common. I've spent my whole life fighting because of one idea, that humans deserve to exist. She met his eyes, and for a heartbeat, the air between them felt warm, despite the cold. Suddenly, the beacon flickered. The soft blue changed to bright white. A small hologram projected into the air, static at first, then forming the shape of a human face. It was an old man, gray-haired, wearing a uniform with the faded insignia of the Terran fleet. His voice came through, broken but clear enough. "This is Admiral Reeve of the Terran vessel Hope's End. To any human survivor receiving this, we hear you." "We are inbound," Eli froze. His breath caught. "Admiral Reeve." "He was my commander." The hologram continued. "We believed all ground survivors were lost. Hold your position. We're coming for you." "Humanity endures." The image flickered and vanished. The beacon dimmed again. Eli's hands shook. For the first time in years, he felt something he thought he'd lost forever. Belonging. Sarah watched him silently. She didn't understand human wars or human fleets, but she understood what hope looked like when it came back to life. Before they could speak again, a loud tremor shook the tunnel. Dust fell from the ceiling. The ground quivered beneath their feet. Sarah jumped to her feet. "That's not an earthquake," she said sharply. "That's thruster vibration. Council ships. They're above us." Eli grabbed the beacon and packed it fast. "We need to move." They ran through the dark tunnels, boots splashing in shallow water. Behind them, explosions echoed as drilling pods broke through the old sewer walls. The Dravani strike team had arrived. Above ground, in the command room of a council ship, Commander Corinvel watched the screens with narrowed eyes. "Thermal signatures confirmed," said one of his officers. "2 life forms, 1 Dravani female, 1 human male. They're heading east." Corin's mouth twisted. "So the landlady protects him." Foolish creature, he activated his comm. "Deploy the hounds. I want them alive and for questioning." Back underground, Sarah led Eli through a narrow maintenance shaft. Sparks rained from broken wires as they crawled through. "Why are you helping me?" Eli asked as they moved. Sarah didn't answer at first. Then she said, "Because somewhere between your madness and your hope." I remembered who I was. Eli frowned. "What do you mean?" "When my mate died, I stopped fighting. I stopped caring. You reminded me what it means to believe in something again." They crawled out into a large chamber filled with broken machinery. In the distance, a thin beam of daylight streamed through a hole in the ceiling. Freedom was near, but before they could reach it, a figure dropped from above, tall, armored, and armed. Commander Corin himself. Sarah's eyes widened. "Corin." "Sarah of Varath," he said coldly. "So it's true. You hide the human." Eli raised his blaster, but Corin's soldiers appeared behind him. 4 rifles pointed straight at his head. "Put it down," Corin ordered. Sarah stepped forward, her voice sharp. "He's under my protection." Corin sneered. "Protection? You disgrace your kind. This creature brought death to our worlds," Eli spoke quietly. "The war is over, Commander. Let it stay that way." Corin's eyes burned. "The war ends only when the last human is ash." He raised his weapon. Sarah moved faster than thought. She fired her plasma pistol, the bolt striking Corin's shoulder. He roared in pain. The soldiers opened fire. Eli ducked behind a machine, shooting back. Sparks filled the air. Sarah rolled behind cover, returning fire with deadly precision. "Go," she shouted. "Get the beacon out of here." "I'm not leaving you." Eli yelled, "You don't have a choice." She stepped into the open, firing again and again. 2 soldiers fell. Plasma bolts hit her side, burning through her armor. She didn't stop. Eli ran toward her, dragging her behind a pillar. "You're hit." "I've been hit before," she gasped, smiling faintly. "Now go, human. Your people need you." Eli looked into her golden eyes and saw not an alien, not an enemy, but a soul like his own. He lifted the beacon and ran toward the light streaming from the ceiling. Behind him, Sarah stood once more, her pistol in hand, facing Corin as he aimed his rifle. "You always were too soft," Corin growled. "No," Sarah said softly. "Just tired of being alone." She fired one last shot. The explosion shook the chamber, collapsing the floor between them. Eli climbed through the hole, gasping for air as he emerged onto the surface. The city skyline burned orange in the sunset. Above it, a new shape appeared in the sky. Massive, silver, glowing with old human symbols. A voice echoed from the beacon in his hands. "This is the Terran fleet. We have visual on Verith Prime. Stand by for extraction." Eli fell to his knees, tears mixing with the dust on his face. She did it, he whispered. She gave me time. Far below, the tunnels burned and the sky above filled with light. The humans had returned. The sky above Verath Prime was no longer calm. It burned. Red and silver streaks crossed the clouds as Dravani warships rose from the towers, their plasma engines screaming through the air. And high above them, breaking through the atmosphere like falling stars, came the Terran fleet, the long-lost humans. Eli stood on the edge of a ruined street, the beacon still glowing faintly in his hands. His heart pounded as he watched the giant silver ships descend through the smoke. For the first time in years, he saw the flag of Earth again, faded but still shining. He whispered to himself, "They came." They actually came, but there was no time to celebrate. Behind him, the ground shook as Dravani troops moved in. Loudspeakers across the city blared orders. All civilians remain inside. The council declares martial control. Any human life form will be terminated on sight. Eli turned toward the old district, toward Sarah. She was still down there, somewhere in the tunnels, wounded, alone. He clenched his fists. "I won't leave her." He ran through the burning streets, dodging falling debris. Plasma fire lit up the air. The once quiet city was now a battlefield. He passed Dravani civilians hiding in corners, terrified. Some shouted insults as he ran past. "Human! Monster!" But others stayed silent, fear and confusion mixing in their eyes. He reached the old building, the place where it all began. The roof was half collapsed, smoke rising from broken windows. Eli rushed inside, coughing through the dust. "Sarah!" he shouted. His voice echoed through the empty hall. No answer. He forced open the basement door and climbed down into the darkness. The tunnels glowed red from fires burning below. He found her near the collapsed chamber wall, pinned under a broken metal beam. "Sarah!" he yelled, rushing to her side. Her violet skin was burned, her breathing shallow. But when she saw him, she managed a weak smile. "I told you. To run," she whispered. "And I told you I don't leave people behind," Eli said, pushing the beam with all his strength. Metal groaned, then shifted. He dragged her free, holding her up. "You stubborn human," she murmured. "Yeah," he said softly. "Get used to it." Above them, the air thundered as the first Terran ships entered the lower atmosphere. Their cannons lit the sky, firing at the Dravani fleet. The shockwaves made the tunnels tremble. Eli helped Sarah to her feet. "We need to reach the surface. My people can track the beacon." She nodded weakly. "Then let's not die down here." They limped through the tunnel, the sound of explosions growing louder. Dust fell from the ceiling like rain. At the end of the passage, light shone through a crack, daylight. But just as they reached it, a familiar voice echoed behind them. "Going somewhere?" Eli turned. Commander Corrin stood there, his armor cracked but still functional, his weapon aimed straight at them. "You humans never learn," Corrin said coldly. "You bring war wherever you go." Eli's jaw tightened. "You started this war. We just refused to die quietly." Corrin aimed at him. "And now you'll finish dying." Before he could fire, Sarah stepped forward, shielding Eli with her body. "You'll have to shoot through me." Corrin's face twisted with rage. "You betray your own kind for this animal?" "I betrayed no one," Sarah said. "I chose mercy." She fired first. The plasma bolt hit Corrin's weapon, knocking it aside. Eli seized the chance, grabbing a fallen rifle and firing back. The tunnel exploded with flashes of blue and red. Corrin lunged forward, his claws striking. Eli dodged, but the commander slammed him against the wall. Sparks flew as the rifle fell from his hands. "Humans are weak," Corrin hissed. "Always hiding behind machines." Eli's eyes blazed. "Maybe, but we never give up." He drove his fist into a control panel, triggering an old generator surge. Electricity shot through the metal floor. Corrin screamed as energy burst across his armor, sending him crashing backward into the flames. The explosion lit the tunnel like a small sun. Sarah looked at Eli, half in shock. Yeah, Eli said, panting. "I really need to stop doing that." They climbed through the crack to the surface. The air outside was chaos. Human ships and Dravani warcraft battling over the skyline. Whole towers burned, their glass falling like rain. One of the Terran dropships descended nearby, its thrusters shaking the ground. A ramp opened and human soldiers poured out. When they saw Eli, they froze in disbelief. "Commander Carter?" one of them said. "You're alive?" Eli smiled faintly. Not for long if we stay here. Get her on board. The soldiers looked at Sarah with unease, weapons half raised. She's Dravani, one muttered. She saved my life, Eli snapped. She's coming with us. The hesitation lasted only a second before the soldiers obeyed. They carried Sarah up the ramp while Eli followed, still gripping the beacon. As the ship lifted off, the city below erupted in fire. Through the window, Sarah watched her world burning. Her golden eyes reflected the flames. Everything I knew, gone. Eli sat beside her. Sometimes things have to burn before new life can grow. She looked at him, her voice soft. And where will you go now, human? Eli stared out at the sky where the fleet waited among the clouds. Home, he said. If it still exists. Sarah leaned back, weak but smiling. Then maybe I'll see what humans call home. Eli turned to her. You'd leave your people? She met his gaze steadily. They left me a long time ago. The dropship rose higher, joining the Terran fleet above the clouds. Below them, the Dravani ships regrouped, their weapons charging for one final strike. Enemy fleet locking on, shouted the pilot. Eli grabbed the comm. This is Carter to Hope's End, fire on my mark. He looked down at the burning planet one last time, then whispered, For Earth. The Terran fleet opened fire. Beams of white light shot down, tearing through the Dravani lines. The sky became pure fire. For a moment, everything vanished in the blaze of the city, the ships, the war. Inside the ship, Sarah reached out weakly and took Eli's hand. You humans, always turning death into light, she whispered. Eli looked at her, his voice quiet. We don't know how to do anything else. She smiled faintly, her hand still in his, as the Terran fleet soared into the stars, leaving behind a world of fire and ash. The stars stretched endless outside the window, calm, quiet, and infinite. After so much noise, the silence almost felt unreal. Eli Carter sat in the medical bay of the Terran flagship, Hope's End, watching the faint heartbeat monitor beside Sarah's bed. She was pale, her violet skin marked with burns and bandages. Every few seconds, the machine beeped softly, reminding him that she was still alive. He leaned forward, speaking softly. You saved me yet again. You never had to. Her eyes fluttered open, golden and faintly glowing. And let you destroy yourself alone? No, human. I couldn't let that happen. Eli smiled, though his eyes were wet. You should rest. The medtech says you'll recover. She gave a tired laugh. I'm not used to your human medicine. It smells too clean. For the first time in years, Eli laughed too. Not a broken laugh, but a real one. Outside the med bay, the ship buzzed with life. The Terran crew worked fast, repairing systems and tending to refugees rescued from the lower cities. News had already spread. The lost human fleet had returned, and Verith Prime had fallen silent under the firestorm. But not all Dravani had died. Many civilians had survived, scattered, frightened, hiding in the ruins. The Fleet Council debated what to do next, to leave or to help rebuild. For Eli, the choice was harder. He stood on the observation deck later that day, staring at the planet below. Verith Prime was now a sphere of smoke and light, half broken, half beautiful. He remembered the streets, the rain, and the small building where a lonely alien had given him a room for the night. Sarah had changed everything. The door behind him hissed open. Admiral Reeve, tall and old, stepped in quietly. His uniform was patched, his face lined by years of war. You've done well, Carter, Reeve said. Without your signal, we'd never have found you, or what was left of humanity. Eli nodded, still watching the planet. How many ships made it back, sir? 18. Maybe less. The rest never answered. Silence stretched. Reeve sighed. We'll leave orbit soon. There's nothing left for us here, Eli turned. There is, Reeve frowned. You mean her? Eli said nothing. The Admiral shook his head. She's Dravani. Their council will hunt her forever. Keeping her aboard could cause trouble. She's not a soldier anymore, Eli said firmly. She's just someone who made a choice. The right one. Reeve studied him for a moment, then gave a slow nod. You always did see people differently, Carter. Keep her safe. You both earned that much. When he left, Eli looked back at the planet one last time. Somewhere down there, among the ashes, the council's survivors were already plotting revenge. But Eli didn't care. For once, the war wasn't his focus. Life was. 3 days later, Sarah was strong enough to walk again. She stood by the window, wrapped in a soft blanket, gazing at the stars. "They look different from up here," she said quietly. "Because you're seeing them with hope," Eli replied. She turned to him, smiling faintly. "You humans see hope everywhere. Even in ruins," he chuckled. "It's all we have left." There was a long pause. Then Sarah asked, "What will you do now? Rejoin your fleet?" "I don't know," Eli said. "We've been fighting for so long I forgot what peace looks like." She nodded. "Maybe peace is not something you find. Maybe it's something you build." Eli looked at her, really looked, at her scars, her strength, her strange grace. "Would you build it with me?" Her golden eyes widened slightly. "With you?" "Yeah," he said softly. "You gave me shelter when no one else would. You risked everything. Maybe it's time someone stood beside you now." For a long moment, Sarah said nothing. The hum of the ship filled the space between them. Then she stepped closer, placing her hand gently over his heart. "You humans," she whispered, "always chasing impossible things." He smiled. "That's how we survived." Hours later, they stood together on the flight deck as the fleet prepared to jump to light speed. The stars outside shifted, shimmering through the ship's shields. Sarah looked at the massive human emblem painted across the deck. "Your people will not accept me easily," she said. "They don't have to," Eli replied. "They just have to see who you are." "And who is that?" "The bravest person I've ever met." For the first time since she met him, Sarah's composure broke. She looked away quickly, hiding a tear that glimmered like gold. The engines roared as the countdown began. "Jump in 10, 9, 8. Eli turned to her. "Once we leave, there's no coming back," she nodded. "Then let's leave together." The stars stretched into long ribbons of light as the ship jumped into hyperspace. For a few moments, everything was pure silence, like the universe itself was holding its breath. Inside the ship, 2 souls, one human, one alien, stood side by side, watching the streaks of stars become a single brilliant glow. Eli spoke softly. "You know, I used to think humans were alone in the universe. Just small, fragile creatures trying to survive." Sarah looked at him. "And now?" He smiled faintly. "Now I know we're not alone. We just needed someone to remind us how to live." In the distance, beyond the light of the engines, a single star shone brighter than the rest, warm, steady, and solitary. Sarah pointed to it. "Do humans name their stars?" she asked. "Sometimes," Eli said. "That one looks lonely." She tilted her head. "Then name it for me." Eli thought for a moment, then whispered, "Sarah's star." She smiled softly. "A human name?" "For an alien soul," he nodded. "A reminder that not all enemies stay enemies forever." As the ship sailed into the endless dark, the light of Sarah's star followed them, 2 lives joined by chance, bound by hope and carried forward into a new beginning.